I have never encountered something as weird as this.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and everything else in between, Star Wars Theory has officially responded on his YouTube channel, not once, but in fact twice. I know, some pretty shocking stuff, one in video form and one in live stream. We've got a lot to cover, so without further ado, let's stop prolonging this and let's dive straight into it.
So, in my almost 9 years of being on YouTube, I have never encountered something as weird as this. Look, blowback, canceling, all that whatever by a certain sect of the fandom, if you want to call them fans.
As someone who's made a significant amount of videos covering Star Wars Theory, gone over loads of content, this is his keyword for people that disagree with him or have an alternate take.
That's warranted. You're on the internet, not everyone's going to like it, that's totally fine. But this is beyond any logical comprehension that I could even, and I'm a pretty logical dude, I'm trying to understand.
Okay, I will 100% hear him out in his responses, not only on his live stream, but also in this video. But from his tweets, it really just didn't feel like he was understanding where a lot of people were coming from, and just kind of flat out ignored it.
So, I made this is in terms of Andor. Of course, every time Andor comes out, I'll say one tiny thing, and it'll be blown up into something just because, well, mainly people just hate me.
Or maybe not, because we're diving straight into this victim complex. Or maybe he's self-aware that a lot of people don't like him for the things that he's expressed online and how he's dealt with a lot of the situations involving him. Maybe he's just become self-aware, but it definitely feels like he's trying to play this victim complex. Like he's the victim here because people have actively disagreed with him and gone against what he said.
S.A. Sexual grape. You guys know what that means. Essentially, there was a scene at the end of the third episode where one of the females was SA'd, was graped, essentially. She got away, finally, great. But look, I didn't feel like that really belonged in Star Wars.
Something that I've seen a lot of people online in his replies and his comments calling Theory out for is how he describes this scene. A lot of people are saying that he's being incredibly disingenuous here because he's describing it like a lot more happened when actuality the scene wasn't like this whatsoever. His description of this scene is just incredibly disingenuous and makes it seem like it's 10 times worse than what was actually shown. Which, when you're over-exaggerating to this extent, it kind of makes it hard to actually grapple with what he's trying to say here and take him seriously, because if you just simply watch the scene, you know how he's describing it is just inaccurate. And to be fair to Theory, this isn't just a Theory thing. I think this is a thing with news articles covering this, with a lot of the conversation around the scene online. They've made it sound a lot like there's a lot more that happened in this episode than it actually did. How people are talking about it, how people are explaining it, is made it seem 10 times worse, which would give you this apprehensive reaction. Something Theory then decides to immediately do is compare this scene to other scenes in Star Wars. More specifically, ones that were cut or ones that were cut away. For example, the full extent of Anakin cutting down the youngling. But again, the comparison is a pretty disingenuous one. It isn't one that really makes any sense within the conversation that a lot of people are trying to tell Theory. It very much seems like Theory doesn't quite understand what people are saying because of these comparisons. All these scenes Theory is comparing to the one in Andor are all trying to do different things to the one in Andor, and I think it's completely unfair to compare them in such a way.
There's implied scenes, and there's you're going too far with Star Wars. Leia with Jabba, you don't see him taking her from the back or his passing her around or anything like that. Maybe it's in the books it's explained, or the comics is totally different, but everything's implied. He doesn't show it. Doesn't need to go that far, to that length, right? But with this being shown, to me, I found it jarring. I didn't like it.
If his argument was, I didn't like how they execute the scene or how they went about it, I would completely understand. But when he says, I didn't enjoy it or I didn't like it, I just don't quite understand. I don't get it. Because the intention is to make you feel kind of uncomfortable. You're meant to feel uneasy when watching. And it doesn't go to such an extent where it can't be in this program, like Theory is explaining it or describing the scene. You are, at the end of the day, with a scene like this, meant to feel a little bit uncomfortable, not exactly in your comfort zone, because you are seeing something that is so horrific and reflecting what happens in the real world. He also tries to make this argument of it would be better if it was an implied scene, but I just don't know how you would make this an implied scene with how they wanted to execute it, with her fighting back. I don't know how you make that really an implied scene.
And the argument a lot of people are making is that it's a real show, it's for adults, I'm like, do you need to see that? for it to be a real show. You need to see that for it to be an adult show.
The scene wasn't included to make it seem like an adult show. The scene was included because the show is targeted towards a more mature audience, and they're trying to spread a message, trying to show something that happens in the real world and show someone fighting back again. It feels very much like Theory is cherry picking a few things that people are saying and just running with that narrative.
Listen, we all have experiences with, unfortunately, S.A. Fuck, I'm just gonna say it was sexual assault. And whether it's someone we know very close to us or people we've known or ourselves, unfortunately, we know it's fucking real. I don't want to see it in my Star Wars. Look, Sopranos is my favorite show in the entire world of all the shows out there. There's a very real scene with that in there. It fits the show.
I'm glad Theory mentioned this, right? This is something that 100% happens in real life, and that's why it's been included in the show to reflect something that does take place in real life, unfortunately. And he brings up The Sopranos here, something he did quite a bit on the stream as well, for an argument that, you know, a scene like this fits perfectly in a show like that, which 100% I get what he's trying to say there. But then my curiosity is, one of his arguments on Twitter was, you know, calling people weird for, oh yeah, what, are you enjoying this? Oh, why are you arguing and defending this so much? Are you trying to enjoy this? When he has no issue seeing it in a show like Sopranos. You could easily just use his own logic against it. It kind of feels like he just threw a bunch of reasons at the wall to why he didn't like the scene, didn't thoroughly think it out, was disingenuous with how he described the scene, panicked later when he was trying to make a response, but he got a bunch of backlash, which has contradicted a lot of his other points.
It fits that world. It fits that real world on Earth. This never been done in Star Wars. Doesn't need to be there. There's a lot of people that have a problem with it. I have a problem with it. I don't need to see that. I don't think it makes it some nuanced show. It's very, like, what? We don't need to see that. You can imply it if you so wish. You want to go there. Cut away. Like George did, and I feel like we need to follow his beat.
But it just wasn't included in the show to make it seem more nuanced. That's just an incredible simplification and a disingenuous take. Theory will say something that makes me feel like he 100% understands where people are coming from, what people are trying to say, you know, he's reasoning with it, whatever, and then he will say a complete different take, which kind of contradicts that, goes against it, and makes him seem like he has no idea what he's talking about. He keeps bringing up George Lucas as a argument here, that George Lucas would never do anything like this. George Lucas would never do anything like this. He wouldn't include this, he would do this, he would do that. But we're not watching a George Lucas product anymore. He handed it over to Disney. This is what Disney want to do. You might not like that, but you can't use that as a reason to just say that this is inherently bad, because it isn't what George Lucas would do.
I said Vader wouldn't tolerate that shit, nor does the Empire condone it. Listen, I'm getting a lecture from people who just found Star Wars last week because of Disney, telling me what Vader would and wouldn't do.
Okay, legendsman, Ego Theory has returned. He's about to go on a whole rant about how he's a more experienced Star Wars fan than everyone else, so he has the right to have an opinion and you don't. Again, this is something that is very common. I highly recommend that you go and watch my other coverage of Star Wars Theory, and you will see this type of thing come up 24/7. Something a lot of people include is the bricks and screws thing, where he's acting like he's incredibly knowledgeable, that this shouldn't be in the Star Wars universe, and he gets it completely wrong.
You're not supposed to have screws in Star Wars. You're not supposed to have, like, brick walls that we would see in everyday life. Those things don't exist.
Anyways, you get the point. It goes on for a little bit because he's just so badly wrong, but let's get back to his response.
Of all the people that are major fans of Star Wars, at least of the first 6 films, knowing the ins and outs, the behind the scenes, and the character analyzation from the books and the movies and the comics, I am definitely one of the most knowledgeable when it comes to the first 6 movies. There are lore masters on comics and books and EU and all that, and that's not my forte. My forte is the first 6 films. I know them well, and I know the characters very well. Vader is an evil guy, but he's not sick in the fucking
He's trying
head.
to act like a history scholar who knows everything, right? So he has maybe more of, you know, a trustworthy opinion on the matter, when here it comes down to pure logical sense, and, you know, Theory just doesn't have any logical sense here. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, but I would never act like this in my right mind because it is just so funny.
He's not that level of evil. There's boundaries to evil. He would never do something like that to a woman. He may kill her, which he's done.
Here we go. This goes back to one of his tweets where he said, you know, he would never do anything like this. He wouldn't condone it. He might kill the victim and the person that did it. But that's all he would do. Like, that would make it any better. Of course, Theory is completely welcome to his own opinion, his own view of the Andor scene. But by chucking this right in the middle of this Discord about Vader and acting like this, he just makes it incredibly hard to take his point seriously when he's trying to put things like this across. If you're trying to make a rational argument and you want actual people to listen to you, take your opinion into account, you know, think about it, consider it, you know, maybe have a response back, this is not the way you go about it.
But he's not going to do that. And I am damn sure if Vader saw an Imperial doing that, he would never allow it to continue. He would choke the guy out, kill him, and probably kill her too, because why not? But he wouldn't stand for that.
I just genuinely don't know how he takes himself so seriously and says a sentence like that and doesn't burst into laughter or even tears for that matter. He then keeps droning on about the Empire and Palpatine and Vader and how none of them would stand for it, right? They would put a stop to it immediately, and you know, this is the same type of stuff that he was saying on his Twitter, which we already previously went over. I'm not going to keep responding to the same points over and over again.
What the fuck? Why are people even having an issue with this? I swear to God, if it was another YouTuber, that side of the fandom would be praising them. You go, King. Or fuck, actually, you go, Queen.
Kind of shows you what type of guy Theory's become pretty recently, in fact. I mean, when I made my first video on him, he was nowhere near this bad. How his opinions, his victim complex, how he was wording things, how he was saying things, how he was, you know, going at other people. It wasn't anything like this whatsoever.
You know, you know. It's wild to me that this is even a thing. And in 9 years, I've never encountered something this idiotically insane. And why? Just because I think people don't like me. Well, at least the minority. And if it was the majority, well then fuck, I wouldn't have the subs that I have.
Again, awful way to respond. Poor me, everyone hates me, I'm a victim, when in actuality people just disagree with the sentiment and point you're putting across. If it was genuinely just Theory that was getting all the hate for this type of opinion, I would understand, but it's not. Anybody that has had the same view as Theory, to even some extent, is getting criticized, and there's been a dialogue that's been taken place there. This isn't just a, I really hate Star Wars Theory, so let's shit on him for having this opinion, and if it was anyone else, this would be the right opinion. It's about his opinion, it's about his view, and it's about his worded it. It's not just about him. Of course, I'm not going to stop him from saying things. Nobody can stop him from saying things. That's freedom of speech. You can say whatever you like. You can say anything you like on your public platform. But if you say something publicly, of course people are going to respond and say things back. If they don't like what you've said and they want to disagree, they are going to disagree and respond publicly. That isn't because they hate you, that's because they're responding to something you have said publicly. Stop acting like a victim. I think the only reason a large majority of people are focusing on Theory to the extent that they are instead of other individuals, even though they are still critiquing those said other individuals, is because how far he's going to defend it and the things he's saying, and you know, making a video response, a live stream, the tweets that were just genuinely insane. So people are going to be focusing on that, of course, because they're giving a bigger response. If someone has the same opinion as Theory and makes one tweet, but Theory has made 5, 10, 15 tweets, a video, a live stream response, of course they're more likely to respond to Theory because he's constantly getting involved in that dialogue, going against and upping the ante with every single tweet and post he made. Like, this is very simple stuff.
Thanks to you guys. If you want to call it ego, call it whatever you want, but facts are facts. Cry about it. Which I've done, and they made fun of me for that too. It's like, what the fuck do I just shut my... If I shut my mouth, they'll say something too. It's like, I can't, nobody can have opinions unless it's like, this is insane. Again,
I feel like Theory's missed this entirely. You can say whatever you want. You can phrase whatever you want publicly online, but so can others in response. That's just how the internet works, but for Theory, he just puts on his victim complex when anyone does it back to him. You don't like that scene, that's completely fair. That's within your right not to necessarily like that. You don't have to like that or even support it, but it's the extent you've gone and how badly you've made yourself look in this dialogue.
SA, if that's where you want to go with it. But there's lots of other ways to make you hate a character or hate an empire or whatever it might be. Blow up their fucking planet. Again,
like I said, a lot of the things that Theory is saying is just repeats of stuff that he's said on Twitter, but I thought I'd address this at least once. That was clearly not their only aim for this. It wasn't to make you hate the Empire just more, it was trying to spread a message, trying to show something, trying to reflect real life, and as well it has that added thing and effect of making you hate the Empire even more. But that wasn't their sole intention, and to act like it was, and that, you know, they could have done anything else there, is just ridiculous. It clearly shows that you don't have really an understanding of where people are trying to come from here, or why the scene was even included in the show in the first place.
Yeah, living in a world where the fandom was not like this in the 90s or the 2000s. It was around 2020, 21, where it's this started. You have to be like super careful with what you say, but also if you don't like something that a very loud minority likes, then you are vilified and crucified.
I get what he's trying to say to a certain extent. I don't necessarily agree with it to that full extent, but he's trying to say about fandoms getting a lot more toxic, hating for the sake of hating. But I think in this case, a lot of people just genuinely disagree with Theory, and he's trying to pin it on this whole internet's changed type thing. Oh, internet's become a lot more toxic, you know, quote unquote woke type stuff.
Talking about, you're literally telling the professors essentially what to teach for the fucking class. I don't know. This is really weird.
Theory has this really weird superiority thing when it comes to fans. You know, I was a fan before you, I've been a fan for longer, so that means I'm more right. When in actuality, it doesn't matter. If you like Star Wars, you all like Star Wars, you're all fans. That's what it is. I'm getting so sick of hearing this 24/7. I don't know why Theory keeps trying to repeat this same old rubbish. There's a lot of stuff that people are saying online. It gets very old and very tiring very quickly.
I'm not even exaggerating. You can't even say, I don't want to see sexual assault in Star Wars, because then people will get angry at you.
Again, just a complete, utter, disingenuous and malicious framing of the situation at hand, what you're responding to, what was actually shown in the show, what people are trying to say. This is just incredibly disingenuous and malicious. This is probably the most malicious and disingenuous I have ever seen Star Wars Theory. This is just genuinely absurd. But we finally got through the response video, nearly 16 minutes into the video, and we've still got some live stream clips. I'm not going to play all of these live stream clips or the whole live stream. I'd highly recommend, if you want to go see that you go and check that out for yourself. I'll only be taking a look at a few clips that really piqued my interest within the stream.
Extreme example you used. Why? Because I make a point that that's an extreme example? No, that would you like to see, how much would you like to see then? If that's the issue. Like, I'm just saying, you know, I don't even want to see an essay attempt.
Again, just an insanely out-of-pocket thing to say yet again, but I'm going to give Theory the benefit of the doubt, right? He'd made a video by this point, he'd made this live stream, he'd been arguing with people on Twitter for ages, you know, maybe he was just tired, wasn't really thinking, he'd got frustrated and annoyed that people still weren't really understanding his point, or didn't agree with his point, and he said that. That's what I'm going to assume. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here.
Not into it. If you think that develops the story and makes it more real and adult, okay, great. Well, I'm not into it, so, you know, that's just me.
I don't know why he keeps repeating this point. I don't think many people are hung up on this fact that, you know, this really makes the show more adult and more nuanced. I don't think that's really the take that a lot of people are going with.
So about sending a message, it's not for shock value. Oh, well, message received.
It's absolutely for shock value.
Incredibly arrogant and ignorant here. I just genuinely don't believe it was just to have a shock factor. They're clearly trying to show something here with a woman fighting back against somebody that's trying to do this to her. There is clearly an intent of a message being shown here, and of course there is a shock factor there, and if you're saying there's no shock factor there, then you're also being incredibly ignorant and arrogant. There is a middle ground here, but nobody seems to want to find that middle ground. Without repeating myself too much and letting Theory, you know, repeat himself all the time, that's all the stream clips that I'm going to play. Again, I highly recommend you go and check that stream out, because, you know, he does say some pretty interesting things in that stream that I think are genuinely worth checking out. But that was Star Wars Theory's response. I honestly don't think it was a great response. I think it was a very, very varied and mixed bag. It felt like at times he really understood what he was trying to say and, you know, where other people are coming from. And then he just completely contradicted himself in other points. And I genuinely think that might be a result of, you know, frustration, anger that people weren't really understanding his point and were constantly going at him. Maybe his victim complex was genuinely him just getting so pissed off that people always seem against him. I don't know, man. You know, I'm not going to do a psychology review of the guy, but response wasn't too great. But thank you everybody for watching today's YouTube video. Please feel free to comment down below your thoughts. I read the last comments and I'd be really interested to see what you think of Star Wars Theory's response here, so please feel free to comment that all down below. And whilst you're down there, you might as well subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a future upload. But I have been your host Samuel, and I will catch you in the next YouTube video, most likely tomorrow.